Hi, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And Dianne, do you have our review of the week?
I do. So this review of the week is from Quirk769. And she says that the podcast is amazing. I wish I had found this with my son because I gave up after 3 months. I felt like a complete failure, and I'm glad I found this podcast for this baby. Our goal is to make it at least 6 months, maybe a year, and I know with Dianne and Abby that can be possible. Thank you for all the information.
Aw, congratulations.
I know. Congratulations. I wish I knew how old her baby was now. You know, like to know how far she's in, or maybe she hasn't had the baby yet. Like, I'm just kind of curious as to where they are in their journey right now. But
yeah, let us know. Tell us. Give us updates.
yeah, we'd love to know. So that brings us to today's topic, which kind of feeds right into the review. And we're going to talk about being the perfect parent.
Yes. And Dianne knows all about that.
Oh,
she
God.
can tell us all how to be the perfect parent, which is why she chose this topic.
Yeah. So
Just kidding.
really, and it's funny because I was talking my husband who does our what the hell does he do? He does our production. So he was asking what we were going to be talking about this week, and I told him, and he goes, "You're being sarcastic, right?" I'm like, "Well, yes, of course, because there is no perfect parent, right? Like, come on."
Right.
And that's kind
But
of the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what we want to talk about. It's not, I know we keep like, at the same time, but this is what we want to talk about, is how we all fall into this trap of it has to be perfect.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that there is no perfect, but everybody is so racked with guilt about not being perfect. Mm-hmm. And that is the problem, is that everyone wants to be perfect and nobody can be. And then we're trying to be, and it's this unattainable goal that's causing us all tremendous amounts of stress. And I'm just going to speak for everybody because I think it really does cause everybody stress.
It does.
And so you ran into somebody, or you were working with somebody where there was a situation, right?
Yes. And of course, you see it in certain areas all the time, but this was really, it almost like was so blatantly hit me in the face, and it was her first visit at the pediatric office and first baby. And, she was talking about how, if the baby wasn't latching well, and she's like, I just, finally gave a bottle of formula because I just, had to give in. It was killing me. And I just, I really want things to be perfect. And I think the way I was reading it was, if the baby wasn't latching right away or well or perfectly for her to what she thought was going to be perfect, then she just couldn't deal with trying to make it right. So she just went to a bottle because she's like, it has to be I'm a perfectionist. It has to be perfect. And I was like, but your baby is 3 days old and you don't know, like, this is a relationship that has to grow, and it's not something that's going to be perfect. We don't know what we're doing yet. We don't know how to do this. This is a learning process. So perfection isn't a thing. But that was so hard for her to wrap her head around. Like, as soon as she brought this baby home, she was like so discouraged that things weren't right away. So just was giving up. And that is so sad to me that was what her mind. And she wasn't even saying like she's like, I was not doing well with this at all. And the baby was great and she was great and everything, but it was the whole process of trying to get used to everything, going home from the hospital and your first night home and your first week home. And if things weren't just right, she was just not dealing with it well at all.
Yeah, it's like this all or nothing kind of thing. Like, I need everything to be right now. Otherwise, it's too much anxiety. It's too much for me to think about how much this means or how big this is. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just going to switch to something else. Yes. I mean, I think that's really kind of what everyone is going through, right? I mean, we're parenting, you can read all the parenting books. You can do all of the things. You can do all that work before you have your baby. But once you have your baby, there's no way that you can ever prepare for that amount of stress and that amount of just bigness that is, transitioning to parenthood. And it all seems so scary. And when something doesn't seem right, with somebody looking out, somebody on the outside looking in is like, oh, well, you can do these things to fix it. But to us inside of it, it seems like the end of the world. And it's like, it seems like the biggest thing ever because that's what you're in at that moment.
Right. And of course, playing a big role in this is societal norms, right?
Yeah.
Like society tells us, and I was reading a great research article on this very, very thing, where societal norms are really feeding into our pressure to be the perfect parent, and how if we don't fulfill that role of what society thinks we should be, that makes us a failure. And now we've got social media. I mean, it was hard enough when social media wasn't there and you just had your mom or your sister or whatever. And, they're telling you how to do things. And if it wasn't right, then, you felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing it the way my mother wants me to do it, or I'm not doing it the way my sister does it, or the way my cousin does it, or whatever. But
and
now
then
we
you
have
just did it.
Right.
Then you just did it the way they did it.
Right.
They're like, no, you're supposed to do it this way. You're like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Families were teaching families.
Right. Yeah. Communities were looking out for each other. Now our community is online, and you are looking at, social media, which is saying, oh, my baby is doing this. Oh, I pumped this much milk. Oh, this is, my baby's sleeping this much. My breastfeeding relationship is beautiful. And it's just like, then the new mother is looking at that going, I'm failing. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah. And not to mention, at the heart of it is all of the conflicting information.
Oh, God. Yes.
Do it this way. And then you read another thing that says, do it this way. And, then you don't know what to do. And then there's huge arguments on both sides, too. What do I do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, how do you do it? And I mean, this comes down to right down to getting a good latch. And it's as broad as what's your parenting style? Are you authoritarian parent? Are you,
right.
Yeah. There's just all of these labels and all these things. And if you do it this way, these are the long-term, terrible, harmful consequences to your child. And if you do it this way, these are, this will happen to your child. And there's all of the,
it's
my
crazy.
God, how are you? And we get, it's insane. It's insane. I do this. My kids are 8 and 5. Yours are even older. It never stops.
No, it does
you're
not.
Still looking at your news feed, and it's like, oh, if you give them Cheez-Its, they're gonna die. And you're like, okay. I mean, there's nothing that says that, but I mean, oh, worst foods to feed your child, right. Cheez-Its or goldfish are always on top.
My kids live on Cheez-Its half the time. Are you kidding?
Then I'm like, oh my God, you're right. We've been really slipping around here. I've just been kind of letting them eat what they want. Oh my God, I need to get back on the, to get back on the wagon and start reading all the ingredients and start, they can only eat whole foods and they can, and then then I'm having a meltdown. Mm-hmm. I'm having a total and complete meltdown. Right. And then I read another thing that's like, well, if you let your kids do this, then this is going to happen. And then the next week, I'm stressing out about something completely different. And then there's another article that says, actually, all this new research says that if you do this, it's not harmful. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. It is too much. We are being given too much information. And I don't know if there's really a trend towards people being healthier. Is there? I mean, I know that more people are breastfeeding, and that's great. That's great. And that's kind of what our, what we want to do here. We're getting more information about that, and people are being empowered to choose breastfeeding, to give it a try, and they're getting more of an idea of where to go for help, and that's awesome. Right. But there's still tons of information out there that's very confusing and conflicting. And then on top of everything else that you see in your news feed. But then that's the thing we do, right? We're breastfeeding. Right. We're going to flip through our news feed. We're going to sleep. Our baby's sleeping. We're going to flip through the news feed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's like there's always, I don't know. I flip back and forth between all right, I'm focusing on this. I'm obsessing with this. I was just having this conversation with Tom this morning because I've got one kid that is the worst, fussiest eater and does not it's getting worse as he's getting older. I thought it was going to improve. And I'm like, do I just not buy the junk that he eats and risk that he's never going to eat again? Or that's going to force him into eating something that he doesn't like just because he's what do you do? How do you do it? And then I kind of flip between that and well, you know what? There could be worse things. He could be into drugs. He could be into, running the streets with crazy people, like whatever, because he's a teenager, So I'm like, there's all these different, what do you do? How do you do this? You've got social media saying you have to do one thing, and then you're looking at the reality of things, and it's like, this is so hard. And you want to do the right thing, right? You want to do the right thing. But the right thing for who? The rest of the world? The society that is judging you? Is that who we're doing the right thing for? Or are we doing the right thing for us as a parent and as a family and as what's making our kids happy? It's like, this is crazy. And who's to say that if I get a cold or if my kid gets a cold, is that because of him going outside with his head wet, like my mother used to tell me? Is that because he wasn't breastfed long enough? Is that because he, or is it just because he got a cold?
He ran into some cold germs and they got into his body. Like that's, yeah.
Yeah. It's just like when people say, oh my gosh, you can't eat this because it's going to give you cancer. You can't do this. You can't breathe in this fume. You can't use this. You can't do this because this leads to cancer. This leads to cancer. This leads to, whatever. I'm like, so when I die, if I die of some horrible disease, am I going to be able to pinpoint exactly what it was? Are we going to know? Yes, it was this very thing.
Right. No, we're not going to know and there's so much research out there that makes links to various things, but there is so much left that is unstudied that we don't even know to study. You know what I mean?
Like, oh my gosh.
I was having this conversation on Facebook yesterday under a post about I don't even remember what it was, but a lot of people were chiming in like, that about the whole teeth, breastfeeding, rotting teeth thing. Mm-hmm. And, like my dentist told me this, my pediatrician told me that the teeth are rotting because he's night nursing, and I'm like, whoa. This is not, no. And they were all really like kind of out, they were like, yeah, I rolled my eyes and, whatever. And they were like, so one person was like, so what, so why? Like, why did this happen to his teeth? It was like all of his, all like front 4 teeth got decay on them. And like, why? If it wasn't the nursing, what was it? And I was like, and I'm like, for like 500 different reasons, maybe. Like we don't know.
Right.
Like it's genetics are huge. It could have been something that was going on in utero during that time while they were developing. Like we just don't know. And right. You could tell it was killing her not to know. She was like, what happened? What did I do? And, you didn't do anything wrong.
Right. But we go to blaming ourselves.
Yes, because we want to be perfect, right? We want to be like, we want to always be doing, you were saying this before, we always want to be doing the right thing. And not, before social media, before a long time ago, I mean, I feel like obviously people have always had stress of parenthood. But I feel like as the modern world develops, I feel like stress levels are going higher. Mm-hmm. And, it's all because we want to be doing the right thing. And there's no straight line.
Right.
Towards that. There's nothing that's like, if you do this, you're perfect. And it's all because we I remember when I was pregnant with my first, I was, I don't know, out to dinner with some friends, and they were like, "Oh, do you want a glass of wine?" And I was pregnant, and I was like, "No." And they're like, I think I was very pregnant, and they're like, "You can, like it's probably fine." And I was like, "Yeah, it probably is. I just don't want to." And then I got pregnant with my second, still same friends, out to dinner, and I was like doing all these things, and they were like, "Oh, that's so funny. You're different now." I was like, "Well, it's my second." I realized, and one of my friends, she was like, "Yeah, I know a lot of parents that like, they're really like holier than thou."
Yes.
And I was like, it's not holier than thou. It's fear that everything that you do is going to affect your baby.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I wasn't refusing a glass of wine the first time because I was being holier than thou. I was scared that it was going to hurt my baby.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not showing off to you. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I make these decisions and I'm better than you. I'm scared that everything that I do and the choices that I make are going to affect my baby. second time I got pregnant, towards the end, I kind of realized that a glass of wine, I was comfortable with that. Because I decided that. And now, I mean, it doesn't matter. That one situation was just to say that, like, she's like, oh, you're so holier than thou. No, I'm not. Simmer down. I'm a parent now. I'm worried only about my child.
Right.
I'm scared that everything that I do is going to affect them. And so now I'm scared to make any decisions. And then before you make any decisions, you have to stress and read 9 books and, get all of the information. And, oh, my gosh, it's so much pressure.
It is so much pressure.
It is no wonder that we're all cracking.
Oh, my God. And this article or this research, that I was reading on it is like saying that exact same thing, that it's causing such higher stress levels and it's causing parental burnout. And it even says here, that it, the risk of parental burnout is very high, but the parental role to restrict their freedoms as well. And that's exactly what you're saying. Like, you're restricting your own freedom, your own choices because of what you think is right or wrong. Like, what are they going to think of me if I do this? What are people going to think? And one of the examples that they gave here was about, like, going back to work and maternity leave. If you don't take a full maternity leave, you're a bad mom, right? You're a bad parent.
But if you take a full maternity leave, then you're not a hard worker.
Right.
So then you have the pressure at your job, right?
Right. So who do you want to please? You pleasing your job, or are you pleasing your family? There is a really, really interesting part of this article that I thought was so great, because I wouldn't have thought to add this into our podcast today, but I see it all the time. I'm sure you see it all the time. We've both probably done this very thing. And it says here, I'm going to read this little paragraph. Within the mothering domain, women's efforts for excellence may show through maternal gatekeeping behaviors as a way to affirm their maternal identity. Do you know what maternal gatekeeping is?
I don't know. What is that?
Women's behavior of restricting their partner's involvement in household and childcare by guarding the management of these tasks, doing the tasks themselves, setting the standards of how tasks need to be done, redoing them to the standards after their partners performed the task. And societal norms are triggering this maternal gatekeeping because the mothers feel that they will be judged for the childcare, the quality of childcare in their family. So, and I feel like we have all done this to a certain degree. And
that's hardcore. That is hardcore, right? That gives me shivers down my spine.
Yeah.
Because I do that all the effing time. So it's like when we talk about emotional labor. I was talking about this on Facebook a couple of months ago about, like, the emotional labor in a house and how, like, women are carrying this load, and the partners are not really involved, and kind of just they're like, it's like the woman is the manager of the house, and then everyone's like the employee, and she's carrying all of the weight and the responsibility, and then kind of dictating to everybody what to do. And that just leaves her with this heavy kind of burden.
Oh, my God.
But and so I feel like there was a really cool article, I'll try to find it, that I can share with everybody who's interested in it, just about how, we're carrying all of this, all of the weight. Really, it's just what you're talking about. It's exactly the same thing of what you just said. And I can't even, I do it all the time. And, it's like, I kind of want to blame my husband, because I want to be like, you need to step up and start doing things around here. And I can't just be me telling you what to do, because then I'm your employee and you're in the employee I'm your employer. Mm-hmm. You know, which that's not sexy. Right. But and so like you need to be an equal partner in the responsibilities, like the household responsibilities.
Right.
But then on the other hand, when he's doing stuff, I'm like,
you're not doing it right. Kind of.
You're doing it wrong.
Just give it.
It's like, let me. You're folding. I go in and there's like Jack's shirts are in Exley's drawer, and you know they're like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. You know that they're like they won't eat the food he makes. I'm like, why'd you toast it like that? You know they don't like it. You know, and I mean part of it is that like I'm here all the time, you know, and he's at work, and so there's that kind of uneven thing of like I know more.
Right.
But then again, like, so I feel like the partner kind of has a responsibility to step up and start doing things. But then I also need to just let it be done that way.
Yeah. And that's kind of like how when I hear moms talk about it when they have babies and they'll be like, you know, I passed the baby off to my partner and then the baby wouldn't stop crying. So I was like, just give me back the baby. Just give me back the baby. You know, and not really even giving the partner a chance to try to soothe the baby or to try to do something, you know. So we tend to jump in to be like, I can fix it better. I can fix it better. I can do it better. You're not doing it right. But that message is constantly telling your partner, you're not doing it right. So why are you trying to do it? You know, like, and then we complain about our partners not doing what they're supposed to be doing either. So it is a really, really tough place to be. But, and you like, if you're one of those personalities that really likes to try to, not likes to, but has to control the situation a little bit more, it is hard to say, okay, here's everything, you do it. I'm going to go take a nap. Like that is a really hard thing to do. And I don't know how to tell a mom to get past that. You know, I don't know how to say, it's okay if the baby's crying. You can still just lay in bed and read a book or take a nap because your partner's got it. Don't worry about it. But how do you not go and try to take over?
I can't do it. I just did it. I just did it. I do it every day, all day. Mm-hmm. And Exley threw his Lego car, which by the way, it took me like an hour and a half to put together.
Oh my God.
And because he can't do the whole long, you know, it was this car and it was too, you know, he's too young to put the whole thing together. So Jack got one. So I got him one and then I put it together. And then I was like, in my head, I'm like, this is going to get thrown at some point and I'm going to cry. And he threw it today. He's had it for longer than I thought he was going to have it before he threw it. But he threw it. It broke. I couldn't handle it. I walked away and I went downstairs and I was sitting with Jack on the couch and I could hear my husband upstairs trying to help Exley put it back together. And I'm like, here is just the blind leading the blind up here with the Lego set. Like, you can't get two people together that know less about how to follow steps and look at one thing that's put together and match it. Like, no way. And so I'm like, no, I'm not going to go up there. Like, I'm mad. I'm going to stay down here and be my, you know, have whatever.
Yeah. And
they're just Exley's getting increasingly upset. So I just went upstairs and I'm like, just give it to me.
I know.
And this is what happens all the time because I know how to put things together. I know how to fix things. I know how to do everything. I know it sounds ridiculous, but in this house, I know everything. And they know it. And so they're constantly coming to me about things. And it's just so much pressure, except that I do it all the time. And so I've kind of like put myself here. Like,
yes, it's pressure. It's stress. It is like overwhelming and it causes burnout. That was you walking downstairs going, I have had it. Like that's the burnout, you know, it's like.
Right. And then I'm pushed, and then I feel pushed up against the wall and then I'm yelling and then I'm doing all the things that I don't want to do. But I'll tell you, we're talking about this being judged. I don't give a rat's behind about that. I do not ever think about being judged by other people. What I do think about is like my own stress level and my kids. I stress out so much about them, about their health and their safety and all that stuff. That's what it all comes down to for me. Yeah. I can't tell you that I think, oh, well, people are going to judge me if I, you know, I don't know. You know, I'm breastfeeding or my house is dirty or whatever. Like, I never think about that. I always think about them, like too much. too much, like where it's just like a high level of anxiety in the house.
And I think, and maybe it just depends too on like your upbringing and obviously what your concerns are. But like for me, I do worry about that judging thing. Like I'll be like to my kids, they're teenagers, and be like, if they were at their friend's house, were you good? Did you say thank you? Are you being helpful? Because I remember my mom being like, oh, you have to be this way, this way, this way. You can't do this. You have to be like this. And this is, and it's just so like, I don't want other people to think that you were raised wrong. And that is the first thing that comes into my head. I don't want other people to think that I did a bad job raising you because you don't know how to say thank you for, another family taking you out for dinner. But that is my hang up on being judged as a good mother. And it's a horrible feeling all the time. Like, am I going to feel like that for the rest of my life? Are we going to, when your kids are 25, are you not going to be able to sleep at night because they're on a, backpacking trip through Europe?
Oh my God. I wouldn't sleep a wink. Oh my God. No.
I mean, it's just like, what do we do? We just gonna like give up? Like, I'm done. Like, this is it. I'm done. I cannot even do it. This is hard. We have to there has to be a balance, right? There has to be.
Yeah, I know. And my mother-in-law was visiting recently, and I don't think she listens to the podcast, but hopefully she doesn't mind me telling about this because I'm about to tell everybody. So she has two kids, my husband and then his older brother, and they all live. So her and the older brother and that family all live in the same city. And she said when she was here recently that she's having a really hard time with her anxiety. Like, this guy is 55 years old, her son. Uh-huh. She's free. Every time that she cannot get a hold of him, like she'll call him or text him, he doesn't answer, she's in full on panic. And he goes fishing a lot. And, it's kind of like he does the like fly fishing, I guess, where you like get in the water.
Oh yeah,
or whatever.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So she's like, oh, it's very slippery, and like I feel like he's gonna get hurt, and she's freaking out. She's 78 and he's 55.
Yeah.
And she's calling him constantly, freaking out, and she's like, I can't stop it. I don't, and I know what I'm doing, and I don't want to do it. And she was really like feeling bad about it, but like. I was like, and she left, and I was like, Josh, like, man, we got to talk about this. Like, what's going on? And, and I kind of wanted to make fun of her for a minute. Then I was like, oh my God, that's going to be me. And he was like, well, you take that as a cautionary tale because you can't do that. And I was like, oh my God, I know you're right. But I know my level of anxiety and like with my kids, I have to do some hard work. Otherwise, that's going to be me.
Yeah.
And you're so right. It totally comes down to your parenting, to how you were parented.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is where people are like, I'm going to be a different parent. I'm going to do this. And you can be a different parent if you want, but you need a lot of therapy.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to you, anybody out there directly to you, like you have problems and you can't function. If you want to parent differently than your parents parented you, you have to do a lot of work because it's going to come out naturally. That's going to be the default. And even when you do the hard work, that'll be the default.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Under stress and any of that. I mean, I've been trying. I don't care if my parents are listening right now. I have tried so hard over the past 8 years to not parent like them. And I don't know if I'm closer.
Plus the world is different now. It's just different. Yeah. There's different fears. There's different, I mean, when we were growing up, there wasn't a fear of somebody stalking us on social media as if they were, right. A child, but they're really an adult predator. That was not a fear when we were growing up. And now it is. So it's like there's just different things to be fearful of and different ways to parent now. And I mean, my mom I don't remember her talking about having fears for us as it, when we were gone or whatever. But I know it's there now. And it's like she never said, makes me nervous when you go. But when I was a little bit older, here and there, she would say things like when I was living in different cities and stuff like that, and she would say something here and there about being a little bit concerned that she didn't know where I was or, whatever. But it really never came out to be that big a deal for her. She never expressed it like that. But I think it probably was. Now that I'm a mom, I realize it probably was. But it was always like, you can't do this because these parents will think badly of you. You can't do that. You can't call a boy. I remember that was one of the things she used to always say. What will his mother think? You can't call a boy. They'll think terrible of you. You can't do that. It was very much of what will other people think. And that's, and less of, oh my gosh, are you safe? I know she was thinking the are you safe thing, but she wasn't telling us that.
Right. That wasn't the main source of stress for her.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's so, I don't even know. I mean, sometimes when we do a podcast on a topic, we have the answers, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. We just stressed you out. Now we're going to say bye.
I know.
Because I don't have the answer at all. I mean, I know that I have a therapist. I read all the, books about managing anxiety. I do all of this work, and I don't know. I mean, I think it's better. It's certainly better than when Jack was first born, because that hit me like a tornado, and not a,
Yeah.
That was just, if you feel completely lost and turned upside down and you're a new parent, you have to please know that you are not alone, and please reach out for help. Yeah. There is no shame in getting help for this, stress that, and you don't even have to have like a specific issue, you don't, it's like, well, I don't know what to say. Well, just say you're a new parent.
Right.
And you want some support. Through. Yeah. That's all you need to do. But yeah, you're not alone, and this stuff is hard, and we're all trying to be perfect, but you're never going to get there.
Yeah. A very, very kind of like this. I met this really interesting guy recently who is a poet and a kind of a, works with troubled youth and all this stuff. And he told me,
a poet who works with troubled youth. Oh.
He does, like, he does poetry on the side, and I know. Would you like to meet him? He's very nice. We were talking about perfectionism, actually, before this even came up, like before I even thought about this, but we were talking about it, and he said, and he's very Zen, does the whole Zen thing. And he said, perfectionism is not possible. Excellence is possible with effort and dedication. And he's like, and I thought that was kind of a cool thing to hear, because I never thought of myself as a perfectionist because I do so many things wrong. So I was like, there's no way. But I had said something, and he was like, that is perfectionism, and perfectionism is not possible. And I was like, oh, okay then. That's interesting.
Well, then we can leave you with this. You are not a perfect parent, but you are an excellent parent.
You're an excellent parent. You are an excellent parent. And we all want the same thing. We want the best thing for our child. That's it, right? That's what we want.
Yes, that's all we want.
Yeah. So other than that, thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.